Today's lesson is 7-6, percent of change. In words, we have this key concept here that describes everything. In words, a percent of change is a ratio that compares the change in quantity to the original amount. So here's our ratio right here, amount of change to the original amount. And the amount of change is going to be found by finding the difference or subtracting one from the other. And the order we're going to choose there is we're going to choose the largest number first, and then you're going to subtract the smaller. Another thing to remember here is in symbols this is percent of change, so we will need to move our decimal place at the end from decimal to percent, which is step 3. And then step 2, being a little out of order here, is to write the ratio as a decimal. So one other extra piece of information we need to know is that there are two types of change. There are increasing, where, for example, let's say a sweater that was on sale the past weekend for $75. This next week is now $90. That would be an increasing. And to show that, we would show arrow up. However, that is when our original amount is less than our new amount. So less than new amount. Again, no matter what, the original amount will be on the bottom. Decreasing is the exact opposite, where say we have a unit that's $50 and then it's on a clearance sale for 50% off and then newly priced at $25. So decreasing, we're going to show a down arrow. That's going to be where our original price is higher or greater than our new price or amount. It doesn't have to be a price. I like to say amount, because it could be yards, could be people, doesn't have to be a price. So our first example, we'll kind of hop back and forth just to show you the differences here. So shopping. Last year an MP3 player sold for $75. This year the same player sells for $90. Find the percent of change in the cost of the MP3 player, and we're to round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. Also, we want to label it as increasing or decreasing. And why I show the arrows is because that's all we need to show for if it's increasing or decreasing. So, rereading the sentence here again, last year an MP3 player sold for $75. That's going to tell us our original price. So no matter what, that one is on bottom, the 75. Going back to our sheet here, original amount's on bottom. We have to find the amount of change to put that on top. So to find the amount of change, we look at our next number. I see our next number up here is $90. Now 90 compared to 75, 90 is greater than 75, so we always want a positive number, so we're going to take our biggest number first, being 90, and then subtract our original of 75. 90 minus 75 on your calculator will get you 15, and then 75 is on bottom. So now we've done step 1, where we've done the subtraction to find the amount of change. Also, we found out that our newer price is more expensive, so we are increasing. So typing this into our calculator, 15 divided by 75 is going to get us 0.2. Right, let's double check our work here. 15 divided by 75 gives us 0.2. So now we have this as a decimal. That was step 2, doing our division. Step 3, looking back, is to write the decimal as a percent. So now, writing as a decimal as a percent, we're going 2 places to the right with that R in percent. I'll draw my new decimal, and then we're going to fill in a 0 in our any blanks we have. So now I have 20, and I did not need to round to the nearest whole percent at all. And I have 20%, and then my arrow says that 20% increase, because we went from $75 to an increased price of $90. Example 2 is groceries. On the first day of March, 425 people went to shop at the grocery store. The next day, 390 people went to shop at the grocery store. Now find the percent of change for the number of grocery store shoppers and round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. Again, label it as increasing or decreasing. So on the first day, first is going to tell us original, we have 425 people. So again on the bottom we have 425 because that's our original. On the top, we're going to have to decide whether 425 is first, 425 is first, or 390, because the next day 390 people. 390 is less than 425, so in this case we're going to list 425 first and then subtract 390. So if we went from 425 to 390, our second number smaller, we decreased. Putting this into our calculators, 425 minus 390 will give us 35, and 425 remains unchanged on the bottom. Now we type it in on our calculator, 35 divided by 425 gets us a very long number there, but we'll just go out to a couple digits here. So that's this equals 0.08235. Now we have our decimal. Now we're changing our decimal to a percent. R in percent tells us we're going 2 to the right. So our new decimal spot's right there. And now I'm going to rewrite this as 8.2 because I'm looking at my 2 here because we're rounding to the nearest whole percent. So now I'm rounding to a whole number, which would be the 8. Is 2 greater than or equal to 5? Nope, 2 is less than. So we're going to stay the same, and now we're going to stay at 8% decrease. And that is our answer. Our next example here is the price of gas was at $1.75 a gallon in 2003. In 2012, it is $3.29 a gallon. Find the percent of change between the 2 years and round to the nearest whole percent if necessary. Again, say if it's increasing or decreasing. So, looking at this, we have original price of $1.75. So right off the bat, we're going to place that on the bottom because 2003 is the original, 2012 is new. In 2012, the price is much higher at $3.29. So we're going to list $3.29 first, subtract the 175, and now we're going to get our difference between the 2 years. Putting that in a calculator, we should get $1.54, and we still have 175 on the bottom. Now, type this into our calculator. We got 154 divided by 175. Oop, had an error there. Oh, I hit my negative sign. So $1.54, $1.54 divided by $1.75 is going to get us 88% exactly. So, and not 88%, but that was 88 hundredths. 0.88 is 88 hundredths. Now, moving our decimal 2%, move the decimal 2 places to the right, and we now have 88%. Going back, I said the price was increasing because we went from $1.75 to over $3, so that's an 88% increase over those 9 years. Now we have a couple other problems we're going to work on that weren't in the notes. However, we did go over these in class. So finding the percent of change, round to the nearest whole percent if necessary, and state whether the percent of change is increasing, so up arrow, or decreasing, down arrow. And that's all you have to do on the homework as well. You just need an up arrow or a down arrow. This is how the homework starts out. They just give you 30 inches to 24 inches. Our first number is always going to be our original, so 30 inches is on the bottom. We see that 30 is greater than 24, so we're going to take 30 and subtract 24. 30 minus 24 is going to give us 6, with 30 staying on the bottom. 6 over 30 is going to be 1/5, and I know that's equal to 2/10. So we have 2/10, and now we're moving our decimal 2 to the right, and we're going to fill in our blank with the 0. So now we're going to have 20%, and that was a decrease because we went from 30 to 24, So that says we are decreasing. So when your original is greater, again our first number was greater than our new amount, then we know we are decreasing. Another example here is same directions, finding the percent of change. We're rounding to the nearest whole percent and stating whether the percent of change is increasing or decreasing. We have 20.5 meters. Again, that's going to go right off the bat on the bottom. And 35.5. 35.5 is greater than 20, so we're going to state that first and subtract 20.5. We are always putting our greater number first, because knowing our subtraction, if we put a smaller number and subtract a larger number, we're going to get a negative number. We do not want to get a negative number, because a negative number does not mean we're decreasing, and that's very confusing. So that's why we're always subtracting using the biggest number first. 35.5 minus 20.5 is going to get us 15. Then we have 20.5 on the bottom, so 15 over 20.5. Now we'll type this into our calculator and see what we get. And I get 73170 repeating. 73170 repeating. So, knowing that here, we're just going to take 731 because we're rounding to the nearest whole. So this is approximately 0.731. And while we're doing that again, we're rounding to the nearest whole number. So when I move my decimal 2 to the right, again, R in percent tells us to the right. So decimals over there now. We have 73.1%. And looking at 0.1, 0.1 tells us to stay down and not round up because it's less than 5. So our answer is 73%. And our first number is smaller than our second number, so we are increasing. So it was an increase of 73%. Again, feel free to check out the online tutors as well as the online quizzes if you need more practice.